Welcome to Lesson 4 in Unit 17, Structure, Function, and Survival. In previous lessons, students figured out that organisms have internal and external structures which help the animals survive, grow, reproduce, and behave. In this lesson, students read, watch videos, and discuss to identify the causes of organism behaviors. Students will notice that some behaviors have internal cues like hunger or thirst. Some behaviors have external cues, like other organisms or temperature changes. At this point, students might begin to understand that organism behaviors occur to allow for survival, growth, and reproduction. This lesson is approximately 4 days. In the engage portion of this lesson, students will recall from Lesson 1 that behavior is a way that a living thing acts. As a class, they will look at some examples of organism behavior and think about what causes that behavior to occur. Several brief videos are provided to view with your class to demonstrate a variety of plant and animal behaviors. After viewing, take a moment to chart student questions about the behaviors they observed. If no one asks, guide students towards wondering what is making that behavior happen. These student questions will be revisited during the elaborate portion after students see explanations of several plant and animal behaviors, so be sure to save this chart paper for later. In the explore portion of this lesson, students will think through different scenarios of animal behaviors and consider if it is an internal or external cause. The internal or external cause sheet can be used in different ways to guide student thinking. Consider your students' prior knowledge on behavior cues and how you might briefly define this new term. An internal cue is something happening inside of an organism, such as hunger. An external cue is something happening outside of an organism, such as the environmental temperature changing. As students work, circulate in order to push and expand their thinking about why the behaviors happen. You may want to go through each scenario one at a time with the class as a think, pair, share activity to generate explanations for why those behaviors happen. This would also be a great opportunity to utilize talk-move strategies for productive conversations among students. Alternatively, you could have students move to 2 different locations in the room to indicate if they think the behavior is caused either by an internal or an external cue and share out their reasoning. It might be helpful to start a chart paper to capture student responses. The focus of this activity is to expand their thinking about why the behaviors happen. Note the group discussion task at the end of this sheet, where students should record why organisms behave in certain ways. In the explain portion of this lesson, students will compare animal and plant behavior through a reading and a video. First, they will read an article about animal behaviors. Help students summarize that animals behave a certain way to grow, reproduce, and survive. Mention to them that the reading was all about animals and ask them to consider how plants might behave. After taking some student responses, show the nature segment on plant behavior. Students should realize that plants behave to survive, grow, and reproduce just like animals do. In the elaborate portion of this lesson, remind students of the videos from Engage by replaying or describing. Student questions were charted when the videos were viewed the first time, so be sure to address them now after they've seen the explanations for those plants and animal behaviors. Consider giving students time to brainstorm in groups to try to explain what was happening. Additional Wonderopolis readings are provided in the curriculum plans if students need more information at this point. They should come to realize that animal behaviors are necessary for survival, reproduction, and growth. For example, the geese fly south because temperatures drop and food becomes more scarce. The plant closes to get nutrients from the insect. In the evaluate portion of this lesson, students should write a story from the perspective of an animal using the animal behavior story sheet. You may want to allow students to choose an animal from the animal habitat and adaptation cards back in Lesson 1. In their story, they will pretend that they are an animal and perform certain behaviors based on internal and external reasons. Encourage students to draw an accompanying picture. If time allows, students could share out their stories and reenact the behavior action that they described in the story. To close out this lesson, refer back to the anchoring phenomenon of this unit, the news anchor reacting to the bug. Students may respond that the news anchor was moving away. This is a behavior. The cause of the behavior was the bug flying around him. This made him afraid. He might have thought that the bug would bite him or sting him, so maybe his reaction was about him trying to survive. In this lesson, students read, watched videos, and discussed ideas with partners to identify the causes of organism behaviors. Students should have figured out that some behaviors have internal causes like hunger or thirst, while some behaviors have external causes like other organisms or temperature changes. Organism behaviors occur to allow for survival, growth, and reproduction. This lesson sets the foundation for the next lesson, where students will synthesize ideas from lessons 1 through 4 in order to describe how organisms use the structures of their bodies to do the behaviors described in this current lesson. The structures ultimately support the behavior, survival, growth, and reproduction of the organism in a particular environment.